Hiya, Dave here from RC Pilots. Thanks for checking out this video where I compare maybe two unlikely planes, but maybe two planes that are actually more alike than you might initially think. The relatively newly released Zode Drift, the long-standing old glider plane, the Hobby King Bixler 2. Even holding these up, it just looks like this is not a fair competition. They're so dramatically different. So let's take a look at what those differences are between these two planes. This short video basically is to have a look at the two planes, compare them, see what's different about them, what's actually similar about the two gliders, and maybe come to some conclusion at the end as to what might be a better glider, depending on your needs, of course. So, kicking off, the Bixler clearly is a big plane. It's a 1500mm wingspan, which really is very large, just about fits in the back of a car. The Drift is a much smaller plane, 877mm. And with that, with this big bulk, the plus is that you can see it much more easily in the sky. It's got a presence in the sky that the Drift does not have. As against that, the Drift is highly portable. One screw, wings come off, chuck it in a gear bag and off you go, making this a real easy plane to take around the place with you, whereas you need a bit of planning when you go to take your Bix. With the Bixler, you don't get an all-in-one package at the moment. You typically get a plug and play. You put in your own receiver. I bought my own GPS and return to home. The Drift comes with that, so it has its own built-in all-in-one system, return to home and FPV. The Bixler is a very easily controlled plane, very easy to fly, slow and graceful, with the big advantage of being a 5-channel plane. That means you have flaps and a rudder, making it a lot easier to maneuver this plane in the sky, particularly at slow speeds. And that is one significant drawback with the Drift. Not having a rudder does have an effect. If you're flying at relatively high speeds, yanking with the aileron and the elevator works absolutely fine, but at slower speeds this plane will not turn so easily. If this is just barely floating along, it's harder to turn it. You can maneuver it, but it doesn't turn quite so easy, and that is just a small bit of an issue. It's not a deal breaker, but it means your Bix is a lot more portable. The Bixler, if you're going to try to compare the two with all the gear, is going to come in a little bit dearer. For everything that I have here, it was costing me around $130, $140 odd. At the moment, amazingly, there's special offers going on, I believe, where you can get an all-in-one package on the Drift for as little as around $100, $110. It fluctuates a lot. One final point when it comes to comparing is that how well built are they? Well, they're both very well built. The Zode is ingenious in how it's assembled and put together, and easy which you can put it together and take it apart. But as regards robustness, the Bix has it. The Bix will take smashes and bangs a lot better. It's got carbon reinforcement. It's that bit bulkier. It's taken a lot of smashing from me, a lot. Whereas the Drift is a little bit more of a fragile type of plane. The wings are very thin. It's a thin profile out at the edge. It's flimsy, and out at the edge it's flimsy, so they will flex if they hit a tree branch hard enough. I can see them getting chopped. A solution to help with that is to just pack it with maybe some sort of packing tape on the leading edges. That would help get around it, but the Bixler is a sturdier plane. Tip back up. Stay Bix. Don't stay Bix. Okay, so that's the differences. What about similarities? Well, they are both really fun glider planes. They both fly slowly really well, making it ideal for a beginner flyer or just for casual flying. Both are almost identical in how gently they can fly and how slowly they can fly, notwithstanding the difference in size. Both will be very good for slow flying, they'll be very good for gentle gliding, and they're both very good for slope soaring. So they tick the boxes almost identically there. They're also very good as a first time plane. Because they're slow, because they can fly slowly, and because they have gentle flying characteristics, both of them are good first time buyer planes. Both are well suited to handling FPV gear and return to home gear. The Zode is a more modern design, and it accompanies the Copilot light system perfectly. It's custom built for it, in fact. The Bix isn't, but you got huge space to pack in your gear there, so that's not an issue. Both of them are very good at staying up in the air for quite some period of time. With maybe a 1500 milliamp battery, 3S battery on the Bix, and a bit of gentle gliding, I've often had it in the air for 20 plus minutes, no problem, gliding around the place. The Drift is an amazing plane, and I think it seems to be purpose built to fly for even longer. Matt, his excellent channel there, Rag the Nuts Off, he has documented getting in excess of 60 minutes flight time with plenty of battery left. That's just unheard of previously. 60 odd minutes flight time is absolutely supreme. So they're brilliant, good flyers that can stay up in the air for a long period of time. Okay, so what's the verdict? Which is a better plane? Both are great, but I suppose it depends on a couple of different factors. One, when it comes to size, does the size matter? And by that I mean, do you need visibility? Is visibility important for you up in the sky? Are you likely to be putting your plane quite a bit up high? If so, a bigger plane is much easier to see. The Drift is that bit harder to see because it is smaller, it's got less presence in the sky. So that's where the size matters. But the trade-off for that is the portability. This is so wonderfully portable. It comes apart so easily, chuck it in the rucksack and off you go. So that's a factor, the size. Next factor is flyability. And by that I mean how easy it is to fly. Both fly well, but the Bix has 5 channels. You got extra flaps and you have a rudder. That makes this plane easier to control, particularly in slow speeds. That might matter to you and it might not matter to you, depending on your flying style. If it's going to be an awful lot of very slow flying, it might irritate you a small bit that you don't have a rudder. That said, I've flown in nice tight spaces, small fields. It hasn't been an issue, but I most certainly have been able to get tight turns. So that might or might not be a big deal for you. And that brings you on to flying locations, where you're flying. If you're going to be flying in big open areas with big fields, your Bix is perfect. If you're more likely a park flyer in smaller areas, the Drift is better. Because it is smaller, it's easier, it's more controllable in smaller areas, notwithstanding not having your rudder. It'll fly more slowly, it'll stop that bit easier. You need a big landing path, you need a big gliding path for the Bix when that's coming into land. It's so big, it's so floaty, it goes on a lot. So location matters. If you're in the park, maybe the Drift. If you're predominantly in large outdoor areas, larger outdoor areas, maybe the Bix 3 will suit you better. Another factor is durability. As I said, they're both very well made, but the Bix takes the knocks better. It absolutely does. That might matter to you if you're a person who's sort of a bit like me, where I tend to be a little bit accident prone. The Bix takes the abuse better. If you're more careful in where you fly and how you fly, the Drift will last you a very long time and it won't really be an issue. And then the final point is, what sort of flying conditions typically do you find yourself in? What's your climate like, in the sense that, do you tend to be living in an area where the weather is calm, sunny, and there's light, gentle breezes a lot of the time? Or are you in a more rugged, breezier place? I live in Ireland, it's nearly always breezy, high winds at that. The Drift will hold its own, but it does get knocked around a lot. This Bix, as you can see in the video there, she takes the breezes a lot better. She's more planted. If you have a 2200 milliamp battery sticking in the cockpit there. She'll push through gusts a great deal better than the Drift. So as I said, if where you live the weather conditions are predominantly sort of docile and gentle, the Drift is absolutely perfect. If it's breezier, maybe it might be an issue. So I hope you found this video interesting. At the end of the day, I think both planes are absolutely wonderful. I was very excited to get my hands on the Drift when I saw it had come out quite recently. I'm not disappointed. The Bix, having said that, has been around for quite some time, and it's still a wonderful, wonderful plane. For me, because of where I live and how I fly, and where I fly, the Bixler is still my favourite. If the Drift was revised to be a slightly bigger plane, perhaps 1,000 millimeter wingspan, and if it had a rudder, well then it would be a much, much closer competition. But that said, they're both terrific planes, and I hope this video will help you in trying to decide what's best for you. So thanks for watching.